The cell phone screen illuminated Mateus's face with a bluish, ghostly light in the dark room. "3:47 a.m. He shouldn't be looking at her cell phone. He shouldn't have been searching the gallery while Veronica slept less than a meter away from him, her breathing a slow, steady rhythm that he knew so well after 8 months together. Sweat dripped down his back as he swiped his finger across the screen, swiping through selfies and landscape photos. And then it froze. There he was, sleeping. Mouth half open, eyes closed, a position I recognized but didn't remember being photographed in. Date: 3 months ago. Another photo. He's sleeping again, this time from 2 weeks ago. The angle was perfect, as if someone had carefully adjusted the composition to capture her face, the curve of her neck, the complete vulnerability of the moment. It slid further to the side. More photos, dozens of them, all of him sleeping, all taken on different nights. Some when they had only been together for 2 weeks, others from yesterday. The strange thing was not just the quantity, but the pattern. In each one, a small object had been placed next to his sleeping face. In the first, a strand of red hair, carefully wound into a spiral. In the second, a small white paper rose. In the third, a piece of fabric that he recognized as part of a shirt he thought he had lost in the laundry. Mateus felt bile rise in his throat when he reached the most recent photo, the one from last night. Next to his face, on the white pillow, was a small pair of nail scissors open, the tip facing his closed eye, a few centimeters away, the photo taken exactly next to her. In each photo, meticulous notes edited in the corner: breathing cycle, 4.5s, REM movement, 23:47, tried to wake up twice, responded to the sound of my name. The last photo, however, had a different caption. It wasn't a technical note, but a sentence that made his hair stand on end. So perfect when you can't resist. The cell phone slipped from his shaking hands, falling to the mattress with a muffled sound. The screen was still shining, reflecting off the ceiling. He slowly turned to look at Veronica, expecting to find her still sleeping. But she wasn't. His eyes were open, fixed on it, without blinking. Eyes opaque in the dark, like 2 black holes watching your every move. A small controlled smile on his lips, almost imperceptible. How long had she been like that, watching? "Did you find anything interesting?" she asked, her voice low and level, without any trace of disturbance or surprise, as if he had been waiting for this moment, as if she wanted him to find the photos. Your fingers slowly moved under the sheet, approaching his hand, the icy touch when she finally reached his skin, cold and firm, relentless. "I thought you were sleeping," Matthew stuttered, trying to regain control of the situation. The cell phone between them, the screen now locked, but the evidence still there. Veronica tilted her head slightly to the side, a studied movement he had seen before, a gesture she used when acting understanding, almost maternal. But now it seemed mechanical, like a predator imitating human behavior. "I never fully sleep when you're here," she replied, her fingers now tracing circles on his palm. "Someone needs to make sure you're safe." She stood up in a fluid movement, without making a sound, as if she had practiced getting out of bed without waking someone countless times. Her slender body was just a silhouette against the window. She walked to the dressing table, the sound of her nails drumming on the wood like small needles piercing the silence. "Are you mad at me?" she asked, still facing away, but Mateus could see in the mirror's reflection that she was smiling. Not for him. For herself. Why did you take those photos?" he finally managed to articulate. Veronica turned on the small lamp on the dressing table. The yellowish light created strange shadows on his face, highlighting his huge, dark eyes. She opened a drawer and took out something that Matthew couldn't immediately identify. "I think it's beautiful how you sleep," she said, as if that explained everything. "So vulnerable, so confident that you're safe with me." His hands moved with surgical precision as he arranged something on the dresser. "At your age, most people have developed some level of insomnia, trouble sleeping, nightmares. Not you. You sleep like a baby." She turned around, holding a small wooden box with inlays he had never seen before. With the lid open, he began to carefully place small objects inside. Mateus recognized the scissors from the photo. The paper rose. "It's a sign of trust," Veronica continued, her voice soft, almost hypnotic. "You trust me enough to stay completely helpless by my side for hours. It's intimate. More intimate than sex, don't you think?" Mateus tried to get up, but his legs felt like they were made of concrete. Veronica approached, the box now closed in her hands. She sat next to him on the bed, too close, her vanilla scent mixed with something metallic, a smell he had never noticed before. "People lie when they're awake, you know," she whispered, as if sharing a precious secret. "But when they sleep, then we see who they really are." She placed the box on his lap, heavy for its size. "You talk in your sleep sometimes. You say interesting things." "What's in that box?" Matthew asked, although he feared the answer. Veronica's smile widened. She took his cell phone from the bedside table, not hers, his, and unlocked it with her fingerprint. Matthew was paralyzed. He had never given her his password or registered her fingerprint. "Did you really think you were looking at my phone?" She laughed, but the sound had no warmth. It was empty. "It was so easy to make you think that. You didn't even notice when I changed the braces while I petted your head before bed." She showed the screen. It was in fact his cell phone. In the last notifications, a message sent 2 hours ago to the contact saved as emergency. The message simply said, "It's over. I can't take it anymore. Goodbye." "What did you do?" Mateus asked, feeling his blood run cold. "Nothing yet," Veronica replied calmly, opening other windows on her cell phone. "But it's all here. The messages to your ex-girlfriends that you never sent but are in draft. The emails to your boss saying you're resigning. The research into suicide methods. Messages he never wrote. Emails you never wrote. Research you've never done." In her eyes, no madness, no out of control. Just a cold, methodical calculation. "Open the box," she ordered, her voice now different, the sweet tone replaced by something sharp like glass. Her shaking hands obeyed, lifting the ornate lid. Inside, small objects are carefully organized in velvet compartments. A men's watch that wasn't yours, a silver ring, another man's identification card, strands of hair, pieces of fabric, small bottles containing liquids. In each compartment, a label with a male name and a date. The oldest from 8 years ago, the most recent from 3 months before I met her, and an empty compartment with your name, waiting to be filled. What would you do if you were in Matthew's shoes right now? If you discovered that there was a box with memories of other people, other victims, with an empty space waiting for you? Maybe you're thinking, "I'd just run away. I'd confront her. I'd call the police." But have you ever stopped to wonder if right now someone is collecting little fragments of your life, photographing you while you sleep, hacking your cell phone and creating messages you never wrote? If you've ever had that strange feeling that something in your room has been moved, if you've ever felt like someone might have accessed your cell phone, if you've ever felt like you're being watched by someone who's supposed to love you, then you might be living your own version of this story. Comment, "She's watching me," if you've ever experienced that icy shiver down your spine, the one that comes when you realize you're not as safe as you thought. "They're just memories," Veronica said, gently closing the box. His voice had returned to its sweet, familiar tone, as if the last few minutes had been a hallucination. "Everyone has memories of past relationships." Matthew was unable to respond. The sight of the empty compartment with his name paralyzed him. Part of him wanted to confront her, demand answers. Another part was too terrified to speak. The cell phone alarm rang. 4:30 a.m., the time he usually woke up to go for a run before work, a habit that Veronica knew well. "You should get ready," she said, picking up the box and placing it back on the dresser. "You don't want to miss your morning run, do you? You get so irritated when you can't run." It was true. How she always seemed to know exactly what defined him. That morning he followed his routine like an automaton. He ran the same 5 kilometers as always, took a shower and dressed mechanically, took the subway to work. In his office, he checked his cell phone obsessively, checking those fake messages that Veronica had created. They had disappeared. No trace of resignation emails or suicide surveys, as if they never existed. Maybe he had imagined it all. Maybe it was just the stress. During lunch, she texted, "I'm sorry about last night. I think we have a lot to talk about. I love you." Just like that, as if it was all just a misunderstanding. Raphael, his closest friend, noticed his condition. "Man, you look like a zombie," he commented as they stood in line for coffee. "Did something happen?" Matthew almost told. The words were on the tip of his tongue. But then his cell phone vibrated with another message from Veronica, a selfie of her in front of the building where he worked. "Surprise! I brought lunch for both of us." How did she know he was in the cafeteria now? How did you know it was your break time? "It's just tired," Mateus replied to Raphael, forcing a smile. "Tough night." In the elevator on the way to the ground floor, he checked his social media. Something felt wrong. There were posts he didn't recognize. Comments on photos of ex-girlfriends, likes on extremist group pages. When had he done this? In the lobby, Veronica was waiting, radiant in her blue dress, his favorite color. His hands held a bag of Thai food, his favorite. Her scent was stronger today. The one he had mentioned he liked on their second date. "I thought you needed some quality time after last night," she said, kissing him softly on the cheek. "I got your favorite dish." It was as if she could read his mind. She had always known what he needed, even before he knew it. At first this had seemed magical. Now it seemed calculated. During lunch on a bench near her work, Veronica continually talked about future plans, what it would be like when they lived together, the trip they would take during their summer holidays, the way they would decorate the apartment they would buy one day. "Why do you have a box full of other men's objects?" Matthew finally asked, interrupting his monologue about curtains that would match the furniture they hadn't yet acquired. Veronica didn't seem surprised by the question. In fact, for a second, he could have sworn he saw satisfaction in her eyes. "They're just memories of important people who have passed through my life," she replied, "the same way you keep that shoebox in the back of your closet with cards and photos of Camilla." Matthew felt a chill. I had never told Veronica about that box. He had never mentioned Camilla, his ex-girlfriend from years ago. "How do you know about this?" "You mentioned it once when you were sleeping," she replied without hesitation. "You talk a lot in your sleep, you know. You share your deepest secrets." He didn't know if that was true. Yet another piece of information I couldn't verify. He returned to work in a daze, unable to concentrate. During the afternoon, his boss called him for a private conversation. There were concerns about his recent online behavior, inappropriate posts, problematic comments, things that could harm the company's image. But he hadn't posted anything. There was? On the way home, he noticed a car parked a block from his house, the same one he had seen near his work earlier. Inside, a figure that seemed to be watching his apartment. When he arrived at his building, he found a package at the door. No sender. Inside, an anatomically correct heart, made of red ceramic with his name engraved. One note simply said, "For you to keep mine." That night, he couldn't sleep. His eyes fixed on the ceiling, ears attentive to every sound. Around 3 a.m., his cell phone rang. It was Veronica. "You're awake, aren't you?" she asked. There was no way she could have known that. "Are you thinking about me?" "How did you know that?" he began. "I always know," she interrupted softly. "I've always felt this connection with you, from the first moment I saw you in line at that coffee shop." He had never told her how they met. In the version she told everyone, they had met through mutual friends. How did she know he had first noticed her in a coffee shop months before they spoke? "I need you to trust me," Veronica continued. "I know the box scared you, but it's just part of who I am, how I love, intensely, completely." Matthew wanted to hang up. "I wanted to block your number." To escape. But something kept him trapped, the same thing that kept him from telling anyone about what was happening. Shame, fear, or something deeper, an addiction he didn't understand. "It's okay," he heard himself say. "I understand." But I didn't understand, not really. He just knew that somehow she had become the center of his existence. He could no longer distinguish where his own will ended and where her influence began. Deep down, he knew he had to escape. I knew there was something deeply wrong, But I also felt with terrifying clarity that it was already too late. In the following weeks, Mateus tried to return to normality. He convinced himself that he had exaggerated the situation. Veronica was just intense, passionate, different, special. He ignored the small inconsistencies in his stories. How she mentioned details of conversations he didn't remember having. How he always seemed to know where he was, even when he didn't say so. Raphael tried to warn him during a happy hour after work. Did you notice that she comes by to pick you up exactly when we're asking for the check? As if she knew. Coincidence, Matthew replied automatically. What about that time she showed up at my sister's house when we were there? You hadn't told her where we would be. I must have commented and forgotten. Raphael hesitated, turning the glass of beer between his fingers. Man. Clara broke up with her boyfriend last month because she found out he installed a tracking app on her cell phone. It's a form of abuse, you know? Control. Mateus laughed, but the sound was forced. Veronica isn't like that. Are you sure? You seem different lately. Always checking your phone. Anxious. Looking over your shoulder. At that moment, as if to confirm Raphael's suspicions, Mateus's cell phone vibrated with a message from Veronica. Have you finished your beer yet? I'm waiting for you. Matthew's stomach sank. He hadn't told her he was drinking beer. That night, when he got home, he noticed something strange. His personal effects had been subtly rearranged. Books in different order on the shelf, clothes folded in ways he never would. Hygiene products in the bathroom in new places. It wasn't the first time. It had started discreetly, a few weeks after meeting Veronica. Small changes that could be dismissed as memory failures. But now he saw the pattern. Someone had been in his apartment, repeatedly. The spare key he kept hidden in the doorframe had been missing for months. At the time, he assumed he had lost. As he searched for more signs of invasion, he found something that chilled his blood. In his shoes, at the back of the closet, small metallic devices, GPS trackers. 3 of them, in different pairs. In the sock drawer, a small camera disguised as a cell phone charger plugged into the socket. On his cell phone, applications he didn't recognize, hidden in folders with innocuous names. But the worst was on his laptop. Someone had logged into all of their accounts. Emails had been sent from his address to random acquaintances, strange, paranoid messages. Searches his history for disturbing topics he has never researched. In a hidden folder, photos. Hundreds of them. Of himself, sleeping, working, eating, taking a shower, taken from angles that indicated hidden cameras in his own apartment, and something even stranger, a folder titled simply Previous. When he opened it, he found subfolders with male names, the same names he had seen on the labels on Veronica's box. Each folder contained the same type of surveillance, men going about their daily lives, completely unaware that they were being watched. And at the end of each folder, a video. Mateus clicked on the first one, titled Thomas Final. The video showed a man, presumably Thomas, arguing violently with someone off camera. Shouting, accusing. He seemed frantic, unbalanced. The video ended abruptly with him storming out of an apartment. Each folder had a similar final video. Men in states of extreme despair or anger, behaving in self-destructive or erratic ways. In one of the videos, Mateus recognized the man. He was the owner of a local coffee shop that had suddenly closed the previous year. Rumors said he had a nervous breakdown, attacked customers, and was hospitalized. When he reached the last folder, labeled Matthew, he felt his heart almost stop. The folder was empty except for a single text file. Inside, a message. You've come too far, darling. Tsk, tsk. His cell phone rang immediately. It was Veronica. You shouldn't go through other people's things, she said when she answered, her voice calm. It's invasive. Mateus looked around frantically. Where are the cameras? How do you know what I'm doing? Veronica laughed softly. Did you really think you'd need cameras to know what you do? What you think? What you feel? His voice became quieter, almost a whisper. I'm in you, Matthew. Part of your system now. The doorbell rang, making him jump. Answer, Veronica ordered over the phone. It's your gift coming. With shaky legs, Mateus went to the door. In the hallway, a large box. When he opened it, he found only a mirror. His own pale, frightened face reflected back at him, and written on the glass in red lipstick, "I see through you." When he returned to the phone, Veronica was still on the line. "Each of them thought they could escape," she said calmly. "He thought he was smarter, stronger, different from the others." "What did you do with them?" Matthew asked, barely able to get the words out. "I?" she replied, sounding genuinely surprised. "I didn't do anything. They did everything themselves. You're doing it alone now." "A break." "Look at your arm, Matthew." He looked down and saw deep scratch marks on his left forearm, scratches he didn't remember making. "You've done a lot of things you don't remember," Veronica continued, as if she could read his thoughts. "You all do eventually." In the reflection of the mirror, Mateus suddenly noticed something behind him. On the wall of the room, words written that weren't there before. Or were they? "You can't trust your mind." The handwriting looked horribly familiar. It was his own handwriting. The truth is within Matthew's reach. The evidence is piling up, the patterns becoming too clear to ignore. But can he trust his own eyes? At the trial itself? In your own mind? And you, who are watching now. How do you know that your world isn't being subtly altered as you look elsewhere? How can you be sure your files are not gone, that your conversations weren't faked, that your reality is not being rewritten by someone close to you? Sign up now to find out how this psychological manipulation ends. Activate the bell to be alerted when Matthew's reality finally shatters, before your own begins to show cracks. In Part 2, you'll find out if Matthew is truly crazy, or if he's being meticulously destroyed by someone he trusts. Matthew dropped the phone. In the silent apartment, just your rapid breathing and the ticking of the kitchen clock. Except he didn't have a clock in the kitchen. In a panic, he ran there. On the counter where it had never been before, an old wooden clock showed 3:47, the same time he had found the photos on Veronica's cell phone. No, on your own cell phone. His head was starting to hurt. Memories overlapped, contradicted each other. What was real? What had really happened? The clock started to ring, a shrill, tireless alarm. Mateus returned to his laptop, determined to save evidence. "I would send everything to Raphael, to the police. I needed to prove that I wasn't crazy." But the folders were gone. The history only showed your normal work, email, and social media accesses, no trace of the disturbing images he had just seen. In the browser, a tab opened. A search for hallucinations associated with personality disorders. The date of the search, 3 weeks ago. Your own research? The doorbell rang again, 3 times in a row, insistent. This time, when he opened the door, Veronica was there. Dressed in red. She never wore red. He said he hated the color. But there she was, in a scarlet dress, smiling as if nothing was wrong. "I thought you needed to see me," she said, entering the apartment without waiting for an invitation. "The things on my computer, the folders, the men," Matthew stammered, backing away. Veronica looked at him with genuine concern, or a perfect imitation of it. "Matthew, what are you talking about? The videos, the other men before me, you were watching them all." She placed her bag carefully on the table. From it, he took out a little orange box. Medicines. "You didn't take your medication today, did you?" she asked softly. Mateus looked at the bottle as if it were a snake. "What medications?" "The ones Dr. Klein prescribed. For the episodes." She advanced, the vial outstretched. "You promised you would take it regularly after what happened at work last month." "Nothing happened at my job," he protested, but his voice cracked. There was a memory trying to emerge. Something about your boss, a discussion, building security. "Sick leave ends next week," Veronica said, as if reminding him of something obvious. "You need to be stable to come back. You need to show that you are following the treatment." Sick leave. But he had been at work today. I had spoken to Raphael. Or not. His cell phone rang. On the screen, a message from Raphael. "Man, how are you? I miss you at the office. I hope the treatment is helping." The ground seemed to be disappearing beneath his feet. Mateus went to the bathroom and splashed water on his face. In the mirror, his reflection looked strange, slimmer, longer beard, sunken eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. In the sink, a shaving kit that wasn't yours, and more medicine bottles, some with names I couldn't pronounce. He stumbled back into the room only to find Veronica fiddling with her laptop. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Checking to see if you've sent any more emails to your boss," she replied calmly. "Like last week's," she turned the screen to him. "A flood of messages sent from your account. Paranoid accusations, conspiracy theories about co-workers spying on you, sabotaging your work." "I didn't write that," Matthew whispered. "Not consciously," Veronica agreed, her voice as soft as ever. "That's why we agreed that I would check your accounts regularly, to avoid further incidents." She was manipulating. She had to be. Planting false memories, making you doubt yourself. That was gaslighting, wasn't it? He had read about it. Matthias picked up his cell phone, determined to call someone. Your parents, the police, somebody. But when unlocking the screen, instead of the normal home screen, there was a gallery open. Photos and videos he didn't recognize. Videos of himself, shouting at strangers on the street, accusing a pizza delivery man of installing cameras in his apartment, yelling obscenities at an elderly woman on the subway, swearing she had been following him for days. And worse, images of him writing on the walls themselves, obsessively doodling in notebooks, installing cameras in his own apartment, mumbling about being watched. A video of him sleeping and suddenly sitting up, still with his eyes closed, to write something on a piece of paper next to the bed, the same behavior I had seen in Veronica's sleep videos. No, that he thought he saw. "You've been sleepwalking for months," Veronica said gently. "Most of the time he just writes things down. Sometimes he's more agitated. The doctor said it's part of the picture." She approached, holding the medicine and a glass of water, like a patient nurse with a difficult case. "You're not alone in this," she whispered. "I'm here to help. Always have been. In every episode." Matthias backed up until he hit the wall. His hands touched what he had written. The paint was still fresh. "It's not real," he murmured. "You're drugging me, manipulating." Veronica sighed, as if they had been through this many times before. "Look in the third drawer of your dresser," she said, "under the t-shirts." With shaky steps, Matthias went to the bedroom, opened the indicated drawer. Under the organized pile of clothes, he found a notebook. Your diary in handwriting, date of first entry 3 years ago. Long before meeting Veronica. The first few pages were normal. Everyday thoughts, hopes, frustrations. Then suddenly suspicions began. Co-workers watching him, neighbors conspiring, and a growing obsession with a woman he saw at the coffee shop near work. Pages and pages about her. Intimate details. Arrival and departure times. What did you order to drink? Who was he talking to? With horror, Matthias realized it was Veronica. He had been watching her long before they met, by chance. The most recent pages were almost unintelligible. A frantic lyric reporting cameras hidden by them, listening devices, gradual poisoning. In the last entry, just one phrase repeated dozens of times. "You can't trust your mind." Matthias dropped the diary, feeling sick. He returned to the living room, where Veronica was waiting patiently. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "What's real?" "I'm your girlfriend," she replied simply. "We met after you lost your job due to your first psychotic episode. I've been with you for 7 months helping you recover. It's not your first relapse, but it's the worst so far." She stepped forward, offering the glass of water and medicine again. "I need you to trust me, Matthew. Only I know who you really are. Only I see through you." That night he made a decision. When Veronica went to the shower, she frantically searched for her passport, birth certificate, any official document. Nothing. Instead, he found another diary. Not yours. Her. The first page stopped him in his tracks. Subject Naga 7, name Matthias Silva. Previous diagnosis, paranoid schizophrenia with persecutory delusions. Current medication, risperidone 4 mg, clonazepam 2 mg. Preliminary analysis, ideal subject for identity dissolution experiment. The following pages meticulously detailed his reactions, his doubts, his fears. How a scientist documents an experiment. No emotion, no empathy. Day 47. Subject demonstrating classic signs of successful gaslighting. Questions basic memories, increasing emotional dependence, complete social isolation. Day 112. Introduced false evidence of sleepwalking behavior, subject readily accepted, cognitive flexibility decreasing as expected. The latest entry, from just 2 days ago. Final phase initiated, confrontation with fabricated evidence of mental illness. Observe whether the subject, A, completely rejects the reality presented, unlikely. B, completely accepts the false narrative, ideal outcome. C, enters a state of permanent dissociation, acceptable. Note, after completion, prepare documentation for publication, subject number 8 already identified. The sound of the shower stopped. Mateus quickly hid the diary where he found it. His mind was collapsing. What was true? What was manipulation? Was he sick, and was this a paranoid hallucination? Or was he sane, the victim of a sick psychological game? When Veronica came out of the bathroom, hair wet and eyes bright, he smiled, pretended, as she had pretended for months. "I love you," he said, testing the words. "I love you too," she replied, without hesitation. Perfect, rehearsed. That night he pretended to take his medicine, pretended to sleep. He watched as she checked his pulse, wrote it down in her notebook, took pictures of him sleeping. The truth was so close and so far away at the same time. His mind, once a safe haven, was now a minefield. Every potentially real, potentially implanted thought. I was losing track of who I was, of your entire identity. Every memory questionable, every certainty shaken. Sometime before dawn, he realized, it no longer mattered what the truth was. Whether she was a manipulator or he was mentally ill, the result was the same. He was disappearing, your essence dissolving. The border between real and imaginary, between victim and perpetrator, had become hopelessly blurred. Veronica, or his illusion of her, had won. 3 months later, Raphael turned the coffee cup between his fingers, observing the woman on the other side of the table. Detective Miranda Rocha, 47 years old, stern expression, dark circles under her eyes like someone who had spent many sleepless nights chasing shadows. "I appreciate you coming," she said. "I know it's not easy to talk about what happened to your friend." Raphael swallowed. Matthew wasn't just a friend, he was like a brother. Was it? The detective raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, sorry, I'm still not used to it." He took out his cell phone and showed the last message he had received. Just one word, goodbye. This was 2 days before Mateus was found in his apartment, overdosing on psychiatric medication. Suicide, according to the official report. "How long did you know his girlfriend? Veronica?" Raphael frowned. "That's the problem. I've never met her." "What do you mean? I thought you guys were close." "We were, so I know something is wrong. He never mentioned a Veronica to me, never." The detective flipped through her notes. "But there are messages between you discussing her, pictures of him with her sent to you." Raphael shook his head, confused. "Impossible. He went out with a woman called Gabriela until 6 months ago. Afterwards he was single." He adjusted his glasses nervously. "Can I see these messages?" The detective showed screenshots, conversations between Raphael and Mateus, discussing Veronica, dinner plans together, her birthday. "That's not my number," Raphael said immediately. "And I never had those conversations." The detective studied him silently for a moment. "You're not the first to come to me," she finally revealed. "In the last 4 years, 7 men have died in similar circumstances. All apparently in relationships with women no one in their personal lives had ever met. All with a medical history of psychiatric problems arising abruptly. All by committing suicide." She opened a folder, showed photographs. 7 men. Different ages, appearances. Nothing in common at first glance. "What intrigues me most," the detective continued, "is that we never find the girlfriends. They always disappear after the deaths. No records, no consistent digital trails. Like ghosts." Raphael swallowed. "Do you believe Matthew was murdered?" "I don't have enough evidence to say that," she replied carefully. "Officially, they're all suicides. But there are unsettling patterns. She took another document from the folder, an autopsy report. They all had significant levels of scopolamine in their system. Do you know? Raphael shook his head. It is popularly called devil's breath, a drug that leaves the victim highly suggestible, with no will of their own. It causes memory loss, confusion. In controlled doses over a long period, it can produce symptoms similar to schizophrenia and paranoia. Are you saying someone poisoned Matthew to make it look like he was having a mental breakdown? It's a possibility, the detective admitted, but the most intriguing case is this. She pointed to a photo of an older man. Dr. Victor Neumann, psychiatrist, specialist in psychotic disorders, found dead in his office 2 years ago, also overdosed. And does he fit the pattern? Almost. He didn't have a mystery girlfriend, but he did have a research assistant, who disappeared after his death, taking all his scientific work. Raphael felt a shiver. Do you believe it's the same person? The detective sighed. I don't know. But we found this in Dr. Neumann's office. She slid a paper across the table. A research proposal titled Manipulation of Perceived Reality, Field Study on Controlled Identity Dissolution. My God, Raphael whispered. The most disturbing thing is that one of the men, before he died, managed to send an email to his brother. In it, he mentioned a diary, a record of experiments that his girlfriend was conducting. We never found that diary. Raphael felt his stomach sink. Matthew sent me a strange message about a week before the end. He asked if I thought he was different over the last few months, if I trusted his perception of reality. You said what? I said he seemed distant, worried, that we hadn't seen each other much lately. Raphael swallowed. He replied, So it's real. She's erasing me. The detective nodded gravely, taking notes. Mr. Almeida, I believe that your friend was the victim of something much more complex than a simple homicide. Something methodical, calculated. Why? What would be the reason? In Dr. Neumann's writings, he theorized about the possibility of completely reformatting a person's identity, destroying their connections to reality and rebuilding it from scratch, an extreme form of mind control. Raphael passed his hand over his face, exhausted. And you think this woman, this Veronica, is continuing his experiments, or perfecting them? The detective closed the folder. The problem is, without hard evidence, without a body, without an identifiable suspect, I can't officially proceed. Raphael felt a sudden determination. What can I do to help? For now, just be aware. Who your friends are dating, sudden changes in behavior, medical histories that appear out of nowhere. When Raphael was leaving the cafe, the detective called him one last time. Mr. Almeida, one last question. Mateus mentioned something about a reflection, a mirror. Raphael stopped, surprised. Yes, how did you know? The last time we spoke, he seemed obsessed with his reflection. He said he sometimes saw someone else looking back. The detective nodded slowly. They all mentioned it, sometime before the end, something about their reflections no longer being theirs. After Raphael left, Miranda Rocha opened a drawer and took out a small hand mirror. A gift from his new intern, a brilliant young woman who had shown up 2 months ago, offering to help with the case. He turned the mirror around, studying the inscription on the back, to see the truth together, Phi. For a very brief moment, her reflection seemed to smile independently of her. 2 months later, the cafeteria was almost empty at that time of the morning. Raphael checked his watch. 7:15. Too soon for most people. Perfect for him. I liked the silence, the routine, something comforting about doing the same things in the same order every day, especially now. After everything that had happened to Mateus, predictability was a refuge. The usual, Rafa, the barista asked, already preparing her cappuccino. He smiled. Thank you, Camilla. While he waited, he checked his cell phone. A notice from the local newspaper. Detective Miranda Rocha found dead in her apartment. Police investigating suicide. His blood ran cold. The news quickly opened. Veteran of the civil police Miranda Rocha, 47, was found yesterday in her apartment, victim of a medication overdose. According to close sources, the detective had been exhibiting erratic behavior in recent weeks, claiming to be followed and monitored. Colleagues report that she had recently been removed due to concerns about her mental health. Raphael dropped his cell phone. Impossible. Not her either. "All good?" He looked up. A woman was standing next to him, her expression worried. I hadn't noticed her approaching. Short brown hair, piercing green eyes. Something familiar about her. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she commented, smiling slightly. "Just bad news." He put his cell phone away uncomfortably. The woman extended her hand. "I'm Vanessa. I started working nearby. I always see you at this coffee shop." Raphael hesitated for a moment before shaking her hand. "Raphael." "I know," she replied, then laughed at her own indiscretion. "I mean, I heard the barista call you." As they chatted trivially, Raphael couldn't shake the feeling of uneasiness. There was something about the way she watched him, as if I already knew him, as if he was just confirming something he already knew. "Do you work in the Empire Building?" she asked, mentioning the location of her office. "How do you know?" She pointed to the badge attached to her briefcase. "It's right there." "Oh, of course," he laughed nervously. "I was becoming paranoid since the revelations about Matthew." "Me too. Newly hired at Nexus Financial, floor 17. The same company where Mateus had worked. Coincidence?" "Do you work in the Empire Building?" she asked, mentioning where her office was. "How do you know?" She pointed to the badge attached to her briefcase. "It's right there." "Oh, of course." He laughed nervously. "I was becoming paranoid since the revelations about Matthew." "Me too." Newly hired at Nexus Financial, floor 17. The same company where Mateus had worked. Coincidence? Vanessa looked at her watch. "I need to go." "It was a pleasure, Raphael. I'm sure we'll see each other more often." As she left, Raphael noticed something that made him freeze. On her arm, half covered by the sleeve of her blouse, a tattoo, a small stylized mirror. He quickly opened his cell phone and looked for Detective Rocha's contact information. He sent a desperate message before remembering that she was dead. At home that night, I couldn't sleep. 1,000 thoughts ran through his mind. Could I be imagining things? Creating connections that didn't exist? Maybe Matthew had just been a tragic victim of mental illness after all. He got up to drink water. In the dark kitchen, the reflection in the window scared him. For a second, it seemed like someone else was watching him, someone with his features, but not exactly him. His cell phone rang, making him jump. Message from an unknown number. "Thank you for talking to Detective Rocha about me. She didn't believe you, you know. Until the end, she thought it was just another grieving friend creating conspiracies. So sad when no one believes us, isn't it, Raphael?" The cell phone slipped from his hand. As he bent down to pick it up, he noticed something under the kitchen table. A small metallic object, a GPS tracker. Another message arrived. The cell phone screen illuminated Raphael's face with a ghostly bluish light in the dark room. 3:47 a.m. He shouldn't be checking messages from unknown numbers while the rest of the world slept. It was the first sentence of Matthew's story. The same structure, the same words. One last message. "When you sleep, I watch. You're so interesting, Raphael. Maybe even more than Matthew. I can't wait for us to see the truth together. V." Raphael frantically looked around, looking for cameras, microphones, anything. How did she know? How could I know? On the kitchen wall, reflected in the microwave, something that wasn't there before. A post-it. He approached tremblingly. Written in his own handwriting, words he didn't remember writing. "You can't trust your mind." The cycle began again. Remember, not everything we see reflects reality. Sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones that can make us doubt ourselves. Have you ever felt that inexplicable restlessness when meeting someone new? That feeling that something is wrong even when everything seems perfect? Your instinct could be saving your life. Share this story with 3 people you love. Not as simple entertainment, but as a reminder. Trust your instincts, notice the patterns, question contradictions, and most importantly, value those who know the real you. Comment "I'm still me" if you've ever felt your reality being manipulated by someone close to you. Because the real terror isn't being chased by a monster. It's discovering that the monster is already inside your life, rewriting who you are. And right now, as you read this, could someone be watching your reflection? In the next episode of our series, Predator Minds, you will learn the story of Vanessa, the woman behind the experiments. How did a brilliant psychology student turn into the most sophisticated manipulator the world has ever seen? What terrible trauma led her to develop her obsession with mind control? And most disturbing, how does she select her victims? The answer may be closer than you think. Maybe in your social circle, maybe at your workplace, maybe sharing your bed. The signs have always been there, hidden in plain sight. In the next video, you'll learn how to identify them before it's too late. Don't miss the episode The Predator's Reflection Origin, the most disturbing story we've ever told, based on real documented cases. Turn on notifications. This knowledge could save your life or the life of someone you love.